So this book is called What Education Becomes when teaching and learning in a post-AI world. And what's really important for you to know is that not only am I one of the authors, there's about 10, but one of our alum, one of our computer science alum is my co-author. So we were asked a question, a very simple question it would seem. What happens when AI is no longer a tool? When we're not looking at the technology and trying to figure out what it does? What does it look like? Can we imagine, can we see what that future might look like? So I had some thoughts on that. I work at the Workforce Integration Network. I see AI in the workforce every day in a pervasive way. And I wrote my chapter. And then my 23-year-old, my computer science major from DH said, no. What makes you think with all of the technology at our hands that we're going to do school the same way you folks have been doing school? It's not working for you now. Why do you think it'll work for you later? So I listened, and we talked to a few of our other students, our interns, and asked their opinion on what happens when we stop worrying about what AI is going to do and we take some ownership. And then we wrote a book chapter, a book chapter with a bunch of other scholars. I left my notes, let me grab them. So in this book, 10 authors were independently asked, so we did not collaborate, we were independently asked to write a chapter about what AI would look like. And what we found was all of these 10 chapters were grouped into this settings. And so the first thing is AI outside of the curriculum. And this is where our editor was really interested. He was like, what's going on in your world? And he wanted to see what everybody thought. So we have these 4 phases: AI outside the curriculum, AI in the curriculum, which is where a lot of our educators are right now, AI as the curriculum, and then AI under the curriculum. What happens when it's ambient? When you don't see it anymore? When you walk in the room and if you have a smart house, the lights come on because you walked in, or if you're up in the academic technology office and you have to do this when your body comes into the room so it can see you. What happens when AI is that? It's ambient. We're not talking about it as something simple. How many of you say, oh, I'm going to use PowerPoint to create my presentation? No, you don't. You just say, I'm going to create a presentation. It's just part of our language now.
Okay.
So here are my 10 authors. Well, Haley and I make the 10th ones, right? And so we had a huge range of perspectives. But there were some bunches that we came to, right? One intervention or innovation was our faculty, our teachers become learning architects. Instead of, the sage on the stage and you're standing there and you're imparting your knowledge, you are co-creating knowledge with your student. And again, please remember, this is what our students felt like education could and should look like. So we included that language into this book. We had Adam Pryor. He talked about the curatorial turn, right, where grades have already collapsed when students can just drop their text into GPT or have Claude co-work, by the way, log in, complete the assignment, and log out for you, right? You don't have to actually learn how to upload your citations because co-work will do that for you, right? So what happens when we work through Refinicide? When do you stop? You can go all day. Have any of you ever had a really long conversation with ChatGPT and you keep going and you fix this one little thing and then that one little thing, and all of a sudden you've lost the plot? That's the concept of Refinicide. So we have English professors, historian professors, workforce integration persons, and consultants, a wide variety of people looking at what AI looks like in their world. And how can we improve? How can we work toward a different future? So this is available to you. Anybody who wants to actually buy this book will get it cheaper than what it is online because we're not paying Amazon. We had 12 contributors. Get this, 6 months from idea to publication, right? When we are not bound by structures that tell us how we have to do a thing, we can be creative together. We have Dr. Craig Seal from Cal State San Bernardino, who talked really about his struggle in discussing and training integrity in the classroom and how he's using ChatGPT to do it. So we have a lot of different authors and a lot of different perspectives, and that's what's good about this book. There is no one solve. It's going to take all of us. It's going to take the knowledge from our philosophy professors, our IT folk, our education, our English professors. All of us are going to have to come together and have a conversation about what does it look like when the lights are just on. So our chapter really specifically looked at that. And it's somewhat of a cyberpunk approach because we looked at the future. We made some basic assumptions, which I'll tell you about. And we tell the story of Jordan. Jordan is a real student, but for the sake of this book, we are not telling who that student is, but Jordan's a real student who's a data analyst. And as I talked to that data analyst, we talked about what does your job look like every day? What is the stuff that you're learning in class that would be applied to your job? How would you do this? And so we have a story of Jordan doesn't go to school anymore. She just goes to work. But we, the educators, have learned to use technology to help Jordan learn in concert, in parallel with her job. So now she's doing the thing and learning why she's doing the thing in the same motion. And so our learning architecture, our learning architect is Alina. And see, that's Alina right there in the purple dress. And Alina's job is really to help Jordan see how information has changed from when she started to when the decision has been finalized in her work. What does it mean? What is the context? How do you know? And I'm looking at Dr. Macias, her paper, where she's asking the students, they're essentially the same questions that she asks her students. How do you know? What is the context? What is the information? And we use this in this chapter weekly to have Jordan reflect on what she did at work, how it relates to her academic experience, and what difference did she make in the world. Because, sometimes we at higher education, we believe that students come to us a blank slate, but they don't. They have experiences, and we have to value as we evaluate their knowledge. Now, I told you about those assumptions. This was a big assumption. I assume in this future that we actually listen to women. On our foundational scholar side, I want to highlight the women of color who have talked about, like Dr. Beheshti mentioned, AI as technology. Ruha Benjamin, Race After Technology, Timnit Gebru, AI Ethics, and her work really shapes how I think about this because she has a paper called Model Data for Data Sheets, and we talk about model cards, right? This is the technology piece. And in this, we don't assume that we are acting upon students. Students are in concert with us. People are in conversation. They're not users of the technologies, but creators of the technologies to solve their own problems. This is not such a far off idea. As a matter of fact, it matters for us today because our students are living this today. When they leave out of your classrooms, they go to work. And in their jobs, many of them are being asked already, how are you using AI? How are you thinking about AI? And that's becoming a competitive edge, that you can think about it, that you can articulate the opportunities that are there. Productive struggle is non-negotiable. I just ask the students to solve their own problems with a tool that they build, Not just go into ChatGPT and give it a prompt and tell it to do something for you, but what would you build to solve your most pressing problem? And then we can talk about what you're doing in your classroom. But today, this technology is real, and we need to prepare them for it because phase 4 is here. The students are using it. They're being challenged every day in the workplace. So I want to also set that context. Workforce integration. I am not teaching in the classroom, so my approach tends to be a little bit different. But if your students are already in phase 4, what's your course design say about that? This Civic Institute that Jordan works at, that's not science fiction. We have libraries that serve the public, that our students work at. We have our housing partners at HOCLA, Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles, where they are in service to the community. They're already doing civic work. We, the educators, could take their work and help them find how these two things come together. So instead of making education the center of the conversation, I centered the student experience for this particular chapter. And that's really the crux of the matter. We all come together and have discussions about the possibilities and co-create, co-design the future that we want out of this technology instead of letting it act upon us and our courses. That's it.